What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm your co-host, Donovan Quick. And last night, Stephen Ross announced that both Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier are returning for the 2025 NFL season. Now, McDaniel, I'm not too unhappy about. I actually think he deserved a fourth year. He's actually going to be the first coach since Joe Philbin to have a fourth year actually happen for him. Flores, Gase were both fired after 3. Philbin was fired like 3 games into his 4th year. Before that, Sperano was fired early on in his 4th year. Wannstedt was fired in his 5th year. Jimmy Johnson had 4 years, and then before that, obviously, Don Shula. So yeah, we're going into our 4th year with Mike McDaniel. I think he's going to be a fairly short leash to start the season. Ross mentioned that he wants stability and he thinks that this is a good direction with this team. And I think in reality, he just knows that to get the most out of Tua, you kind of need McDaniel. And that just is what it is. However, Chris Grier on the other side, we thought we were going to get lucky. I kind of defended Chris Grier up until halfway through this season, where I just realized that this roster just was not good enough. And I kind of knew the roster wasn't good, but I defended him saying, like, look, we went all in on the last 2 years and had a top 5 roster the last 2 years. However, those rosters lacked depth because ultimately they got injured. Like last year, we were really competitive, had a great run game, had a great pass game. Our defense, meanwhile, the numbers weren't all that good. They weren't giving up points. And all in all, I mean, we ended up doing terrible at the end of the season because injuries and lack of depth. We ended up with 4 backup offensive linemen. We were without Chubb and Phillips on the edge. So we had Ogba and some other old dudes like Melvin Ingram and some other old dudes. I think even Ogba got hurt at the end of that year. And secondary, Xavier Howard got hurt, and we had to move Cater to the outside. Cater a lot better in the slot. Nick Needham didn't really use him, and he is really good. Nick Needham has been lost since his Achilles injury, and I think that we're not giving him the proper shot. But it's another story for another day. But anyways, moral of the story is we turned that great roster but lacked depth into a roster full of poo. Like, we let so many guys walk because of money. Like, we could not afford them because we have giant contracts everywhere else on this roster. We have Chubb getting paid just stupid amount. We have Ramsey getting paid over $25 million. You have Tyreek getting $30 million. You have Charn Armstead getting over $25 million. You have Tua that you just paid. You have Waddle that you just paid. You have to end up paying Phillips this next offseason. You have to pay Holland, which he's probably going to end up walking. Yet, like, we had Xavier Howard that was making a lot of money as well that we ended up having to let him go. And so there were certain financial cuts that had to be made, and he did a decent job at finding value with guys like Jordan Brooks, Jonnu Smith, Aaron Brewer was a good signing, but we had to let Connor Williams walk. He ended up retiring midseason, so it's kind of like, okay, whatever. Who knows if he would have done that if he was with us? Maybe that was just his mindset, period. Maybe he just didn't like Seattle. Who knows? Who cares? On the other hand, you have the case of Andrew Van Ginkel walking for $2 million more a year than what we signed old-ass Shaq Barrett for, who ended up retiring before the beginning of the year, and then choosing, hey, I want to come out of retirement, but not for you guys. I want to come out for the Buccaneers. So I'm going to make you guys release me. Make you guys give me the Bucks. And that sucked. But that kind of screwed us because then we had to go and sign Ogba. And it sucked. It sucked. That was his worst decision by far in the offseason. I think a lot of the other moves that have been made, he is actually giving a lot of give to McDaniel and being like, hey, these are some of the guys that we've been scouting. what do you think of them? And McDaniel's like, oh, I really like that guy. I really like that guy. And I think I can develop him. I think I can develop him. Like, that's a reason for Achane, for Jalen Wright. Patrick Paul seemed like a good pick. Aaron Brewer really came on this year. I thought that was a terrible signing at first, and you guys can go watch that video. I thought that was terrible. But yeah, and some of those signings worked out, but a lot of them didn't. Jordan Poyer did not. We ended up letting Brandon Jones, Robert Hunt, Connor Williams, Christian Wilkins, all of them walk. Now we replaced Christian Wilkins with, guys like Calais Campbell, Deshaun Hand. I keep wanting to say Benito. It's not Benito. But yeah, drawing a blank right now. Jesus Christ. Anyways, we replaced Christian Wilkins with, a lot of guys that are kind of mid-level, not really great, but they're good enough, and they played well this season. But obviously, when Calais wasn't on the field and Zach Sealer wasn't on the field, it was kind of a little bit of a disaster out there as far as our run-stopping ability. So that definitely needs to be addressed. Anthony Walker was a 1-year deal. Jordan Brooks is on for next season. I believe Tyrell Dodson is off the books. He's gone after this year as well. We have a lot of guys that are just on 1-year deals. Kendall Fuller was a terrible signing, him to replace Xavier Howard. So Cam Smith, he just hasn't been able to play. I think he still has that raw talent. He just needs the playing time, but he might be a bust. We'll see. He's still a young guy. He has all the physical and natural abilities to play the position. It's all about refining his technique and getting it down. I think he can do it, but that's to be determined. And at this point, it's just not looking good, as well as his ability to stay on the field. And Chris Grier, just so up and down. And we thought that, this past couple weeks, the rumors about him possibly retiring, that there was rumors circulating at the beginning of the season that he might retire at the end of this season, got me hopeful again. Like, okay, maybe we're going to go and actually get a GM. Like, he might go to a senior advisor or whatever, but at least we're going to get a new GM that can work in cohesion with McDaniel and Anthony Weaver and get the proper guys in for the system and get this offense, defense down with young guys that are good, that are healthy, that are reliable, get the depth back that we have never had. Because ultimately, this is football. This is a tough sport. Injuries are going to occur, and you need to address backup positions like they actually need to be used. It sucks when you're going out there and you have to start Skylar Thompson or Tim Boyle and Mike White going out there. Those aren't the guys. Snoop looked a little bit better up until last night, where he was just absolutely abysmal. Four turnovers, 3 of them he was solely responsible for, 2 of them in the red zone, where we could have had points. Just doing too much, and it just sucks. It sucks. So all in all, there's positions that need to be addressed, and him kind of laughing at the media at the very beginning of the year, talking about I think you guys are more worried about the offensive line than we are. And then the offensive line proceeding to be absolutely terrible, where we could not run the ball, and therefore we could not throw the ball downfield, because what are they gonna, if they can stop the run with 3-4 guys, they can drop the rest of them back into coverage, and we have no one open downfield. Tyreek Hill, who now once out of Miami, there's another video on that I posted last night. Go check that one out. He has not looked the same this season. He is not. He doesn't get separation. Now, I know he's dealing with a wrist injury. I know he dealt with an ankle injury at one point this season that he mentioned. He just does not look the same. He's not as fast. He's not getting separation. He is getting locked up by guys like Stingley and Tyreek Stevenson over in Seattle, like, or Witherspoon, sorry, not Stevenson, but you're getting locked up by guys that are, 22, 24 years old, and they're a lot younger, like they're just as fast as you are, and it's not his game anymore. He's not able to get that separation that he created early on in his career. This is the first time since I think he was like a rookie or something that he's not in the Pro Bowl. It's the first time in his career he's not in the playoffs, and he's starting to feel that lack of success, and now he wants out. And what does that say about Chris Grier? What does that say about Mike McDaniel? That there's that disconnect, that you have one of the best players in the league, supposedly, that doesn't believe enough in your team to want to stay there, doesn't see the vision to want to stay there. Last year, the year before that, Miami was a hot spot that, people wanted to come to, but they still wanted to get paid. Now it's like, okay, do I want to go there? Like, if you're a young guy, like if you're entering the draft or you want a shot to have a significant role on a team, then maybe Miami's the place for you. But that is not, this is not a winning culture right now. It is a culture of brotherhood, and that has a decent leadership as far as Tua has really stepped up. But he can't really lead when, you're on the sideline. Like, you try, and you're trying to coach up your guys. You're trying to get them riled up. But it's hard, especially when you're sitting there out your second game in a row because of a hip injury, and you're looking up on the scoreboard, and your playoff hopes are slipping away because the Broncos are absolutely dominating the Chiefs. That is not a good sight. And then you look down and you have, your players like Tyreek starting to check out and then pulling themselves out of the game. Like, you can't have that. And it makes me question the control, and does McDaniel still have the locker room? Now, I still think he does. I think it's just Tyreek. He mentally checked out. But John New, Calais Campbell, in their post-game press conferences, they praised McDaniel for the locker room and being able to come from 2-6 just to get to 8-8, and then ultimately this game was lost. And John New talked about, we're human. We're going to look up at the scoreboard. We're going to get demoralized by seeing that, this game does not matter as we're watching that game just unfold. And it sucks. But it is what it is. Giving Aaron Rodgers his 500th touchdown in 501 or whatever it was, and letting him walk into the sunset as he retires, hopefully. And letting the Jets go back to absolute, just terrible, terrible ownership next year is going to be fun to watch. Unfortunately, I do think the Patriots are going to start being good again once they hire Mike Vrabel. But that's a conversation for another day. I'm mentally burned out. I know a lot of you guys are too. I'm right there with you. But we're going to keep giving you the stories. We're going to keep giving you my thoughts, Jacob's thoughts, as the season starts to go around. And look, it sucks. It is what it is. All right, y'all. Deuces.